Today I'm going to be making a cute spring chick using this cutout from Dollar Tree. To start out, I'm going to go ahead and give both sides a fresh coat of white chalk paint by Waverly just to kind of give it a fresh base. Now I am going to be covering one side up, so I don't really have to do this, but sometimes it's just nice to start off fresh. Once I have both sides painted and completely dried, I'm going to add a layer of Mod Podge onto one of the sides because I'm going to be applying some tissue paper to give it some added texture. I'm just crumpling it up and then slightly spreading it out and pressing it down onto my cutout. And of course, you don't want to smooth it out too much because you are going to want some of those ripples and edges, but just kind of press it down firmly, make sure everything sticks, and then give it a good dry. Once it's dry, I'm going to use my mini sander to just go around the edges and lightly brush off the extra tissue paper. And this is pretty thin, so it's really easy to break that away from the rest of the piece. And I get asked a lot where I get my mini sander from. Walmart does have them, and I also have some linked in my Amazon shop if that's something that you're looking for. And once I have all the excess off, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of lightly brush on some white paint. It doesn't have to be super full coverage because I have the tissue paper on there, but I just want to be able to start layering and blending some of my colors. So for this step here, I have some bright yellow that I'm mixing in with a little bit of that white chalk paint to soften it up a little bit, and I'm just lightly dry brushing that on top of the white. And then I'm going to take a little more white once that yellow did dry and go ahead and brush that over too, just to create a few different layers. And since I have all my paint colors out, I'm going to go ahead and work on this little wing piece that I cut out of cardboard because I thought it would be cute and give him a little bit of a different texture for the wing as well. I'm misting on some water here because it helps to pull off that top layer of cardboard to expose the corrugation. And then I'm going to dry brush in some white and then also some of that yellow. I'm just kind of following the same process that I did on the larger piece. And then I'm going back over that with a little bit of the white just like before. I'm going to use some antique linen distress ink to start going around those edges just to do a little defining and some shading. I still want to keep him pretty bright, but this just gives the eyes a little bit of visual interest so that it's not a completely flat piece. I'm just focusing on all the little grooves and then some pieces across the middle, some of those raised parts where the tissue is standing up. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the little wing piece. And then I'm going to go back over the top with some more Mod Podge just to protect my piece, kind of pull some of that distressing ink around and make it shade a little on the edges, and also just because it makes the next few steps of shading a little easier because it can glide on that glue. And once that glue is dry, I did need to touch up a little bit with the ink because some of it wiped away. So I'm doing that, and then I'm adding in also a little bit of this darker color and using my blending brush to make a little bit more definition. Again, I'm just focusing on all the kind of little edges and creases and then a little bit across the top. I know it's kind of looking a little crazy here, but I always say just hang in there with me, trust the process, because I'm going to be doing something later to smooth it all up a little bit. And that's where this wax comes in. I'm using some white wax by Folk Art and a wet wipe to just start working that across my project. It's going to give it just that light sheen of wax on top, but you're still going to be able to see the color and shading on the bottom. But it's really going to blend all of that color in really nicely. And now that I'm finished with all my painting and shading, I'm going to go ahead and use some hot glue to attach his little wing. And I think he needs a little bow. I'm going to use my mini bow dabber here and try to keep it small. You guys know that I have trouble with that, but I promise this time I'm really going to try. So I started with a piece of just plain muslin, not coffee stain. Then I'm using a yellow plaid ribbon, and then on top I'm going to put this gray and white striped ribbon. And I like this combination because it just gives it a bright base and then a pop of color and a little bit of neutral to kind of tone it down a little. Once I get my layers done, then I can tie that wire around it on the front and the back and make a knot so that it stays nice and tight. And then at this point, you just can kind of fluff it up, move those loops around where you want them, trim any edges that need to be trimmed. I'm working on also fraying those edges that I trim off and cutting away any extra strings. It's also a good time if you need to adjust the size of some of your loops on your bows. You can do that as well. And I think I did a pretty good job keeping it small here. It looks really nice in proportion on the neck of the chick, which is where I wanted to put it. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that down. And I think it's looking super darling so far, but I want to make it a little stand. I have this piece of wood I got from Dollar Tree and then this little extra cut off piece of a frame rail. I glued that all together and then I'm going to paint it with this mineral colored chalk paint by Waverly. And once that's dry, I'm going to dry brush on a little bit of the white chalk paint just to give it kind of a weathered look. Then I'm going to use my mini sander to just kind of scuff up those edges and corners a little bit to make it look a little distressed. And this is a new ink that I haven't got to use much, so I thought it would be a good time to kind of try it out. It's called Picket Fence, and I'm just putting that over in the corners where I scuffed it up. And I don't know if you can tell it on camera, but it did just give it a super thin layer of some white over those areas. Then I can just drop some glue down in that rail and slide it right in. Now I have this greenery pick I got from Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to start cutting some pieces off of that to layer on that bottom of the stand. And then I'm going to use my staple gun just to kind of fix some of those larger bottom pieces on that stand and make them nice and secure before I start gluing the other pieces on. Then I'm cutting off some of those yellow stems, laying them out in opposite directions, and gluing on some of the extra leaves and flower pieces from that pick. Just kind of filling in the holes where I feel like it needs a little something. And then it's still a little sparse, so I decided to add in some moss. It would have been a lot easier if I would have thought of this to begin with, but I didn't, so here we are. I'm just kind of gluing it down on the sides underneath that greenery and running it across the front as well. And this is another pick I got from Dollar Tree. I'm just going to take off some of those flowers. They're kind of white with a little bit of yellow. I thought they went well. Kind of pop those in there to fill in some of those extra spots. I feel like the Dollar Tree really has some nice florals out this spring. I like the texture and the colors on a lot of them. Then I wanted to make it a little tag, so I'm stamping out the words chirp chirp on this little tag I made from some white cardstock. These stamps are a 1/2 inch lowercase set that I got from Dollar General, and if you are not able to find those at yours, I did pick up a few extra and put them in my Etsy shop so you can get them there. I'm just kind of tearing around the edges of that tag, crumpling it up, and adding some distressing ink to make it match the rest of my piece. Here I'm just measuring it out and tying on a little bit of twine string. Before I glue it on, I'm going to add a small piece of greenery from that pick so that it kind of pulls up the elements from the bottom. And then I'm gluing that tag string on top, and then I'm going to glue this little button on top of that. Then I'm going to take some of the taller leaves and glue them into the top where they're kind of springing out of that little bow. And here's the finished project, y'all. I really love how bright and springy that yellow looks. Thanks so much for watching my video today. I hope you liked the finished project, and I hope it inspired you to get a little crafty. Have a blessed day.